Are we ready for this? This is it. We're in the final stretch. Achi starts kept out. All we have is Kano and Minorikawa. And we're going to start with Kano. Let's go. Kano's cell phone rang. He saw Kuze's name on the display. Kano speaking. What the hell are you doing? The director's voice was shrill with irritation. What's the situation with Maria Osawa? I have her in custody, sir. We need to get her into quarantine immediately. I'll send a counter-NBC terrorism unit to pick her up. Counter-NBC terrorism unit. A public safety mobile investigation unit belonging to the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department Public Safety Bureau. The acronym NBC refers to nuclear, biological, and chemical threats. The unit not only gathers information and investigates terror incidents that make use of these means, but also deploys relief and safety restoration measures. What's your location? Sir, the situation's a little complicated at the moment, Kano replied. He and Stanley made eye contact. Kano gave him a knowing nod. He knew what he needed to do here. That tip was helpful. I thought it just meant Fox News. I'm going to send Fox News. Sean Hannity is going to take care of this. He's going to make freedom ring. He briefly informed Kuze of the plan to take Maria to the laboratory, but was careful not to mention Alphard. Please, sir, Kano said, bowing reflexively to the phone. Let me handle this. Absolutely not! Kuze exclaimed. There's no way I can allow that! Maria Osawa needs to go in quarantine right now! Quarantine. The act of placing infectees in isolation, such as in medical treatment facility, in order to prevent the spread of infection. For viruses capable of airborne transmission, an airborne infection isolation room, AIIR, is sometimes used, which employs negative air pressure to ensure that air from within the room does not leak outside. Sir, please just give us a little more time. Giving her the antiviral is the only way we can save her. If we put her in quarantine, it'll be a death sentence. Kuze let out a growl of frustration. Kano, that isn't your decision to make. Kano had run out of arguments. It was clear that Kuze's only concern was stopping the spread of the virus. Director Kuze, are you just going to let Maria Osawa die? We can't put the lives of everyone in Shibuya at risk in order to save a single person. I know that, sir. That's why I'm asking you to please let me go to that laboratory. And if it looks like we're not going to be able to hack the password, then at that point, a quarantine can... Kano! Kuze snapped. I'm giving you an order, and I'm not accepting that order. Listen, Kuze said. How many years have you been a cop? What do you mean by that, sir? Kuze didn't reply. Is this an order from up top? What's going on here, sir? Please. I need some kind of explanation. Stop it, Kuze said. You sound like a child. This is dereliction of duty. Call me a child if you want. But I'm not following an order that I know isn't right. Kano punched the end call button with his thumb. From an objective standpoint, maybe Kuze was right. They needed to think about more than just Maria. If the Uwa virus spread through Shibuya, it would be a nightmare of epic proportions. Kano understood that perfectly clearly. But still... He looked down at Maria's face as she lay collapsed on the floor. This girl was still alive, and Kano couldn't stand idly by and let a living, breathing person die. Consequences be damned. He wasn't going to be the one to weigh the worth of someone's life. As he stood, still clutching his cell phone, Stanley gently set a hand on his shoulder. You did fine, he said quietly. Alphard is in possession of the Uwa virus. people of Shibuya are already in danger. He may have already released the virus in the city. If he hasn't, he may do so at any time. Right now, what we need to do is get that antiviral and arrest Alphard. You made the right choice here. Thanks, Stanley. I appreciate hearing that. Stanley gave Kano a slap on the back. He was right. At this point, they needed to focus on the things they could still accomplish. So, guys, Achi stepped forward. Who's going to take Hitomi's sister and Kaden to the lab? Maria was in no condition to walk, so they were going to have to take a car, which meant they needed a driver. I only have a motorcycle license, Achi said, and I don't know where the lab is anyhow. I should go with Maria alone. Kaden looked over at the others. There's no way of knowing for sure when she might become contagious. We shouldn't needlessly risk exposing more people to infection. She knelt down to gather Maria in her arms. In that case, I should drive. Kano whirled around at the sound of a new voice behind him. Oh boy. Tatno was standing in the doorway. You! Achi's face went red with rage. Oh, keep out. Oh, Achi's face, I see. We're gonna have to hop over to Achi. Alright, Achi. Let's do it. Let's see, you, Achi. All right. 1805. You, Achi snarled. In the doorway stood the man with the cane. Detective Tatno? Tatno. Kano and Daisuke spoke simultaneously. Now, at last, Achi had a name for the assassin. It was a name he felt he'd heard somewhere before. You son of a bitch! Achi roared. What the hell are you doing here? Tatno bowed his head profusely. I am truly sorry. You're sorry? Sorry don't cut it, man! Not after what you were trying to do to Hitomi. We have both Cane Man and Kanan here. Oh no. I love it. I don't expect you to forgive me, and I intend to turn myself in to be punished for my crimes. But before I do that, please, let me do what I can to help you. I think you've helped enough. Achi grabbed Tatno by the collar and drew back his fist. Kano moved to stop him, but Tatno held up a hand. No, it's all right. Let him do as he pleases. There was no trace of the menacing expression the man had worn in their previous encounters. Achi scowled but lowered his fist, then released his hold on Tatno's collar. Fine. Hitomi's sister needs help, so we do need a driver right now. Make sure those two get to the lab and back safely. That'll make up for that punch I didn't give you just now. Thank you. I am so sorry. Daisuke stepped forward. No, I'm the one who should be apologizing. I'm the one who got you caught up in this. Daisuke, we really didn't grow up to be very good people, did we? No, guess not. The two men stared bleakly at each other, shoulders slumped. In the end, Tatno said, I guess we were just trying to run away from our pain. Yeah. Didn't expect my own son to be the one to teach me that. Achi's turned out to be a fine young man. He is Katone's boy, after all. Guys! Achi stepped into the middle of their solemn heart-to-heart. You can get all sappy all you want later. Dad, once this is all over, we're gonna go see Suzune, okay? Sure. Daisuke nodded heartily. Hold on, Kano spoke up, turning to Stanley. those two take Maria to the lab. That leaves just us two to apprehend Alphard down to the Scramble. Is that going to be enough? I mean, Alphard's not going to show up without a plan. The more people we have on our side, the better. And I doubt we'll be able to get any help from the police. Good point, Stanley agreed. Hey, Achi said. I'm here too, and I'm going with you. I'll keep Hitomi safe. Oh, look. Good news, Kano. Now we have 3 people. Stanley let out a sardonic laugh. Kano frowned. Achi, I appreciate the offer, but having 3 people instead of 2 won't make much of a difference. When you're not sure of the enemy's exact plan, you really need strength in numbers. If we could set up a dragnet like the task force did this morning, that'd be ideal, but... Come on, Detective, Achi said. Don't you have any idea what sort of approach this psycho might take? If I were Alphard, Kano mused, then I suppose my biggest problem would be figuring out how to get away after I'd taken Hitomi's blood. Stanley nodded in agreement. I'm betting he plans to involve the Ua virus, he said. If, for instance, he tells us he set up a device somewhere to spread the virus throughout Shibuya, that prevents us from taking action against him. Achi swallowed hard. This guy wanted to unleash a killer virus in Shibuya? If he succeeded, then the town Achi had known and loved all his life would become a graveyard. Of course, that's mere conjecture, Stanley murmured. Quite frankly, even I can only guess what he's going to do. His expression was grim. Strength in numbers, huh? Achi said. So you're saying we absolutely need more people? Is that it? Essentially, yes, Stanley replied. But not just anyone, mind. If it's not a group that meshes well, it'll hinder more than help. Kano folded his arms across his chest. He looked perplexed. People who mesh well together, huh? Achi had an idea. He could ask the police. No, it's gotta be SOS. He could ask SOS. If there was anything he could do, it was that. It was a selfish request, he knew that. Susumu would probably be furious with him, but Achi would just have to deal with that. Even if his old pals wouldn't forgive him, if they understood that they'd be helping protect Shibuya, he was sure they'd step up and take action. After all, the whole point of the gang was that it was made up of people who loved their town. Can you give me half an hour? I'm gonna try to see if I can rustle up some people. Kano straightened himself up. You think you can do it? He's sending out an SOS to the world. Yeah. I hope that someone gets my... Yeah. Achi in a bottle. Achi nodded assertively. Just wait here for me, okay? He said to Hitomi. She gave him a worried smile. All right. I'll be waiting. It'll be okay. Achi did his best to sound reassuring. I promise. I'll bring back some help. He knew where he needed to go. The pool hall in Uraharajuku. That was his old gang's main hideout. Running at top speed, he could probably make it in about 10 minutes. All right! Rushing out the door with a battle cry loud enough for Kano and the others to hear from back inside the shop, Achi sped on his way. Let's go. Achi's protests were vehement, but he backed down at last. Tatno would escort Kanan and Maria to the lab. That left 3 to try to apprehend Alphard, Kano, Stanley, and Achi. Having only 3 people was a dicey prospect, though, so Achi took it upon himself to head out and gather some backup. Tatno got the car keys from Daisuke, then helped Kanan pick Maria up off the floor. Kano watched him warily. There was no trace of the blood-curdling expression the older detective had shown when he was holding Maria at gunpoint. His face was that of a man with a responsibility, the Tatno that Kano had always known. Are you sure you're okay doing this? Hitomi asked Tatno. You might get infected. That doesn't matter. Don't worry about me. All I care about now is helping you two if I can. He hesitated, glancing down at the unconscious girl he held. By the way, have Maria's memories come back? Hitomi tilted her head. Her memories? I suspect she took a blow to the head when she was abducted. When I ran into her earlier, she didn't even know her own name. Well, she seemed like the same sister I've always known when she came in here. Good. Then her memory must have recovered. Rana was shocked to hear that Maria had suffered amnesia. But it explained why she hadn't contacted anyone after she'd been set free. All right then, Tatno said. We'll be back. Carrying Maria, he and Kanan headed for the door. Detective Tatno? Kano called out, then paused, tongue-tied, when Tatno stopped. There were so many things Kano wanted to say, but he couldn't find the words for any of them. Once Maria is safe, I'll turn myself in. Tatno kept his back turned. The words were like a dagger in Kano's heart. Once this was all over, Tatno would no longer be a detective, but a criminal. Kano knew there was no alternative, but still the realization hit him hard. Detective Tatno? Stop your dithering. But never lose sight of what you're supposed to protect. Ever. Kano snapped back to attention at Tatno's words. That was Dick Dictum number 1, the advice that had kicked off the whole Dick Diary. I'm not the one you should be worrying about right now, Tatno continued. We need to save Maria Osawa's life and protect the people of Shibuya. Kano bit his lip. He still did his best to quash. I know that, but still wanted to express his regret at how things had turned out for his idol. Yes, you're right. Let's go along with it, I think. Yes, you're right. Kano did his best to quash his emotions. Then we're good. Tatno gave a slight nod, then headed out the door. Detective Tatno! Just before the older man disappeared, Kano gave him a silent salute. It was a breach of protocol to salute while in plain clothes and without his cap. Still, it was the best way he had to let Tatno know how he felt. I'll leave the rest to you. Tatno took one last look over his shoulder before finally leaving the workroom. That's right! We are now jumping into Detective Tatno. I told you we had more characters. Kyozo Tatno gingerly flexed his right elbow. It was still a little sore, but it shouldn't interfere with his ability to drive. Does that hurt? Asked the girl called Kanan. No, I'm all right. Good thing I didn't kill you, she said, her tone matter-of-fact. You want to think that younger detective. If he hadn't stopped me, you wouldn't be here right now. Is that right? Tatno looked over at Kano. He was talking to Achi and the others about something. The last time Tatno had seen Achi had been back at Katone's wake. He felt a strong surge of emotion seeing how the boy had grown into a fine young man. Are you sure you don't mind driving? Kanan's voice snapped Tatno back into the moment. Yes, it won't be a problem. Back when she'd attacked him on that rooftop, she'd moved too quickly for him even to get a glimpse of her face. And now that he was able to get a good look at her, he was shocked by how young she looked. And yet there was a cold gleam in her eyes, a glitter of awareness with no trace of emotion behind it whatsoever. In his long career as a detective, Tatno had seen eyes like that before. It was a look he knew well. The look of someone who had killed, and had done so many times. I'm so sorry about all this. Please look after my sister, Hitomi said. She bowed deeply. No, I'm the one who should apologize. Tatno would have liked to go on to say that helping now was the least he could do to atone for what he'd done earlier, but he stopped himself there. Nothing he could say to Hitomi Osawa could possibly earn her forgiveness. Silently, Tatno lowered his head. His subsequent actions would have to make up for his crimes. He had to hope that this was possible. Kanan, you look after my sister too. Hitomi bowed once more. You two know each other? Tatno looked at the two girls in surprise. Kanan is my sister's friend, Hitomi said. I just met her for the first time today. What strange series of events could have transpired for Maria and Kanan to wind up as friends? Tatano felt a prickle of curiosity, but now was not the time for that conversation. Daisuke reappeared. He had gone to fetch his car keys. You know where it's parked, yeah? He asked. Same as back in the day? That's right. Over where we always hung out with Kitone back in grade school. All at once, Tatano was hit with a surge of childhood memories. The sky was a piercing blue. The droning of cicadas echoed in his ears. Oh no, wait. When the cicadas cry? Oh no! Tatano, don't eat any mochi! Or cookies or whatever it was. A refreshing breeze brought intermittent respite from the heat. During summer vacation, they spent their days here, in the parking lot behind Daisuke's house. As Tatano and Daisuke played near the stairs at the side of the lot, the blazing sun beating down on them, Kitone would always come along with some iced barley tea for them. The two boys would race to see who could drink theirs up the fastest. Cold and fragrant tea flowed down their welcoming throats. Most of the time it was Tatano who would finish first. Daisuke often wound up choking and spitting his out. Kitone would flash him a motherly and sympathetic smile. Oops. Then Daisuke would grin back at her sheepishly and fuss with his hair. That had all been nearly 40 years ago, but Tatano could envision their smiles as vividly now as ever. They were his only fond memories of his childhood. Tatano took the keys from Daisuke, clutching them firmly in his fist. All right, he said. We'll be back. He lifted up Maria, and with Kanan supporting her on the other side, began to head for the door. Then Kano called out to him. Detective Tatano? There was a look of sadness on the younger man's face. Don't let yourself become a detective like me. Tatano had the words right on the tip of his tongue, but he swallowed them back down. It suddenly seemed petty to trivialize the aspirations Kano had held for so long. Once Maria is safe, I'll turn myself in. Once Maria is a safe. Oh no, this is like the miracle never happened. Once I've turned Maria into a safe. She can't catch the virus if she's a safe. After he made sure that Maria got to the laboratory, he would cease to be a detective and instead would simply be a criminal. In Japan, a charge of plotting to commit the crime of murder carries a prison term with labor of not more than 2 years. But despite the failures that had brought him to this position, nothing he had said up until now had been a lie. Of that much, he could be proud. Never lose sight of what you're supposed to protect. Ever. He could at least try to be the detective Kano had so admired until the very end. As Tano left the room, Kano saluted him crisply. Ordinarily, a detective wouldn't salute in plain clothes or without his cap. The little breach of etiquette just showed all the more clearly how Kano felt. If Tatano hadn't been holding Maria up, he would have returned the gesture. Leaving Endo Electronics, Tatano and Kanan carried Maria up a hectic Dogenzaka. The parking lot was less than a minute away by foot. Before long, however, they found their way blocked by a veritable wall of people. It was a riot squad with Kuze at the head. A police squad that carries out security and control activities in order to maintain or restore public order in the event of an emergency. The Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department has 9 riot police units, along with a support vehicle unit, for a total of 10 such squads. These also comprise teams that carry out certain specific functions, such as the Explosive Ordnance Division and Chemical Defense Unit. Director Kuze. Tatano! What are you planning on doing with that girl? What are you planning on doing with her? I already informed Kano that she's to be put under quarantine. If she's allowed to remain free, all of Shibuya will be in danger. Kanan took a step forward. Tatno could sense that she was about to move in for the kill. Easy now, he said softly. Wait. As skilled as Kanan was, she was no match for an entire armed police squad. I'm not going to take all of them on, she murmured. I'm just going to take the man in charge hostage. Tatno swallowed. Capture Kuze and then run off? It could work. Considering the time limit they were facing, he knew that they had to find some way to force their way through here. Still, given how far they still had to go to reach the laboratory, he wanted to avoid direct conflict as much as possible. Give me 1 minute. No, just 30 seconds. Tatno turned and stared at Kuze. The two had known each other since their rookie days. Director Kuze, tell me. What is it that you believe in? What do I believe in? Yes. Weren't you always the one who said that you needed to put faith in your subordinates no matter what? Well, yes. Yes, that's right. Kuze's eyes wavered ever so slightly. In that case, put your faith in me. No, put your faith in Kano. In Kano? He believes that saving Maria Osawa will let us save Shibuya. He's doing everything he can to make that happen. Kuze's lips curled into a wry grin. That sounds like Kano, all right. Always thinking in such simple terms. Usually the simple answer is the right one, sir. People like you and me overthink things. We make them more complicated than they need to be. Just consider for a moment. Will putting Maria Osawa under quarantine clear up this case? No, it won't. So long as we don't know how she was infected with the virus, we can't rule out the possibility that other people have been infected as well. Tatno kept his eyes locked on Kuze's. Back to Kuze. Right now, what we need to do more than anything else is get our hands on that antiviral drug. We need to be helping Kano. Please, sir. Kuze furrowed his brow and thawed for a few moments, then shook his head. Tatno, buddy. Come on, I can't do that. You gotta understand the position I'm in. The director's voice squeaked into his childish register. Kanan narrowed her eyes. What's this guy's deal? She whispered. It's hard to explain, but when his voice gets like that, that means... He was confused. No, it says he gets, what was it they said at the beginning? He becomes serious, I think. Right? He was confused. Let's try confused. He was confused. Now is their chance to make a run for it. Tatno signaled with his eyes to Kanan and then got ready to sprint past Kuze and his team. He didn't get the chance to, though. Ugh! Suddenly, Kuze let out a pained yelp. Then, as Tatno watched in surprise, he proceeded to collapse onto the pavement. Ah! It hurts! It hurts! Have I been infected with the virus, too? The riot squad immediately rushed to the director's side. As Tatno stood there dumbstruck, Kuze secretly flashed him a knowing wink. That was a terrible performance, Kanan muttered. Yeah, but it was a tour de force as far as I'm concerned. I mean, inwardly, Tatno gave his boss a nod of respect. Slipping past the riot squad, he and Kanan headed for the parking lot. Several members of Kuze's team hurried to chase after them. Don't follow them! Kuze cried out as he writhed on the ground. Everyone, stay back! If you get too close to Maria Osawa, you'll be infected as well! The riot squad stopped in their tracks. Tatno and Kanan took the opportunity to hurry out of sight. Darting through some narrow alleyways, they arrived at the parking lot. The area had changed since Tatno's youth, but some of the old air of nostalgia still lingered. It's a bad parking job. There it is. He spotted the minivan with Endo Electronics written on the side. Tatno gently laid Maria on the back seat. She was still apparently unconscious. Once Kanan had climbed into the passenger seat, Tatno hit the gas and sped off. How far is it to the lab? Kanan asked. Normally it would take about 15 minutes, but with this traffic, it's hard to say. Tatano avoided the stop and go of Dogonzaka, taking side streets as he headed toward Shibuya Station. Once they had re-emerged on the main thoroughfare, however, he spotted a checkpoint set up ahead. Barricades and armored vehicles were blocking the road. The scale of the security effort showed just how grave the situation truly was. Tatano hit the brakes. What do we do? Kanan spoke without taking her eyes off the barricade ahead. Tatano thought for a few moments before arriving at an answer. Talk their way through. They talked their way through. Wait here, I'm gonna try something. What are you going to do? A little bit of persuasion. Tatano reached for the door handle, but Kanan stopped him. Don't, she said, keeping her eyes fixed forward. You'd just be wasting your time. But Tatano didn't get to finish his thought. A patrol car came roaring out of a nearby side road. What the? The police cruiser sped past the minivan and cut to the left, turning to head right toward the roadblock. Crashing into the barricade, it plowed on through, not stopping until it slowed up onto the curb beyond. The car's impact had made enough space for another vehicle to slip through its wake. The minivan barreled on through the checkpoint. Tatano wondered who in the world had been driving that cruiser. Tatano's phone rang and he picked up as he sped onward. Were you able to break through safely? It was the voice of Detective Kajiwara. Tatano had thought he was at the Osawa residence. The patrol car just now. That was you? A call came in from Task Force HQ saying that Kano had found Maria. I figured maybe Kano was planning to take her to Okoshi Pharmaceutical, and so I thought he'd need to make his way through one of the checkpoints here. But the fact that it was you, Detective Tatano, now that was quite unexpected. He let out a weak chuckle. Kajiwara, are you hurt? No. Don't worry about me. Just, please, help Maria. I made a promise to her father that I'd save his daughter, no matter what. Tatano could hear the energy draining from Kajiwara's voice. Understood. I'll keep that promise for you then. Thank you. The line went dead. Kajiwara, no! He'd crashed headlong through that barricade. There was no way he'd come out of that uninjured. I'm sorry, Kajiwara, Tatano said to himself under his breath. And thank you. He bit his lip, then stepped hard on the gas again. What a bro, yeah! Oh, we're kept out of Tatano. Alright, who's next? There he is! Our boy. Alright. Well, let's see, Kano. Do we can actually do, yeah. Just before the older man disappeared, yeah, Kano gave him a silent salute. Salute while in plain clothes, yeah. And leaving the workroom, yep. Even after Tatano disappeared from view, Kano remained for a long time at attention, his fingertips pressed to his temple. He squeezed his eyes shut, but still, the tears he'd been holding back poured down his cheeks. This is very anime, you got the manly tears and all that. There were only 30 minutes remaining until the time when Alvard had told them Hitomi should be at the scramble. They needed to get ready for action. Is the surveillance camera system still up? Kano asked. Yes, Daisuke replied. It looks like what happened earlier was just a temporary hacking job. Then will you help us? Daisuke inclined his head. What do you mean? I'd like you to keep your eye on the scramble for us. If anyone suspicious tries to get near Hitomi, let us know. Anyone suspicious? How will I know what's suspicious? Like that organ trafficker who suggested you kidnap Hitomi, Mr. Endo. It's possible that he might be Alphard. Would you be able to recognize his face? Daisuke furrowed his brow deeply as he began entering commands on his keyboard. Yeah, don't think I could ever forget. It's because of him that He left the rest unsaid. A moment later, several of the monitors switched over to feeds from around the scramble. Alright. Daisuke squinted at the images. I'm not sure how much help I can be, but let me at least try to atone for what I've done. Of course, and thank you. Daisuke's fingers flew over the keyboard, and soon all of the monitors were focused on the scramble and its surroundings. Then he carefully adjusted the angle and zoom for each of the cameras. Now the whole area was under total surveillance. All they had to do was get their stakeout crew to the scene. Where did Achi go? Kano asked Hitomi. I'm not totally sure, but I think he went to find some of his old friends. Hitomi sounded worried. Friends? Achi used to belong to a gang called SOS. Actually, he told me he was the one who formed the gang in the first place. What? Kano couldn't keep the shock from his voice. Achi was the founder of SOS? How bizarre that the two of them would wind up meeting each other this way. But I guess there was a big falling out between them, so I think he went to try and win them back over. Kano hadn't heard anything good about SOS since Achi had left them. If things had ended on bad terms between him and the gang, getting them to help might well be a lost cause. And even if Achi was able to gather some people up, how much would Kano and the others be able to trust them? It'll be alright, Hitomi said, as if sensing Kano's thoughts. I'm sure Achi will bring back some of his friends. And when he does bring them, I'm sure he'll choose people we can count on. You really trust him, don't you? Yes, Hitomi said without hesitation. Then a blush came to her cheeks. Alright. Then I'll trust him too. It would take about 10 minutes to get from Endo Electronics to the Scramble. Kano turned to Stanley. Let's plan to head out by 6:50. Stanley gave no reply. He had withdrawn to the edge of the room where he stood lost in thought, his expression uneasy. Kano decided to leave him alone for a bit. Taking a sheet of paper from one of the desks, he began drafting a plan for positioning Achi's reinforcements around the Scramble. Alright, there we go. In about 5 minutes, he had drawn up a little map of the optimal places to deploy the team. It included positions for as many as 20 people Achi might bring back. Kano turned around, surprised to find Stanley right behind him all of a sudden. The American looked haggard. Is something the matter? Kano asked. You need to go to the Scramble without me. What? Where's this coming from all of a sudden? Please. Don't ask me to explain. Something else has come up and I have to see to it. Sweat beaded on Stanley's brow. Whatever had happened, Kano had no doubt it was something major. And almost certainly it had something to do with Alphard. Stanley, Kano said. We gotta trust him. Do what you have to. I understand. Do what you have to and come back soon. I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you more. It's alright. I'll find a way to get by. Kano had a vague idea of what Stanley was up to. He probably felt he needed to keep things hidden from even his own allies in order to help keep Alphard in the dark. Or at least, that was Kano's guess. This was no ordinary opponent they were up against. Keeping secrets, even amongst friends, wasn't necessarily a bad call. Kano promised me one thing. What's that? Once this is all over, you'll go have a beer with me. Sure. All right. Kano couldn't help but smile. That's a promise now, remember. The promise these two made just now mirrors another made by a certain pair of brothers in the past. Once this is all tidied up, I'm gonna need a drink. Let you and me have a beer together. That was what the younger brother said, and the older brother still feels the pain of that promise going unfulfilled. That's right. That's right, baby. We have our next viewpoint character. It's Stanley! We just unlocked Stanley! It was 6:00 p.m. Alphard had contacted the motley team at Endo Electronics and the situation had immediately deteriorated. But the new developments had also provided them with one big chance. A chance that Alphard might appear in person at long last. Yes, we entered a code to unlock the bosses to play. Yes, we're entering cheat codes. Yes. You did fine. Jack Stanley set his hand on Kano's shoulder. A weak smile came to the detective's face. Stanley paused, unexpectedly moved. That one moment he saw in Kano the image of his younger brother Frank. Jack, you have to get everyone to a safe place right away. Frank's nervous shout echoed through the hotel lobby. Stanley's younger brother was a member of the bomb and arson squad. Subsection of the Chicago Police Department's Bureau of Investigative Services, BIS, that handles investigation of bomb and arson-related cases. This was 2 years ago. The CIA had obtained intel that Alfard was targeting a high-class hotel in Chicago for a terror attack. Stanley and his team had searched the hotel interior and had discovered the bomb set inside a large planter. When Frank arrived at the scene and saw the explosion, his expression grew grim. The detonation trigger is set in the worst possible place. Gonna be a bastard to remove it. In that case, you need to get out of here too, Frank, Stanley said. No, I need to make sure I can figure out how this thing is set up so the disposal unit knows what to do when they get here. I'll be all right. Look, you can probably see it from back there. Stanley could indeed see the small explosive from where he stood. It was held in place by several screws. The timer had just ticked down past the 30-minute mark. There's plenty of time left for the disposal guys to get here. Jack, I need you to help finish evacuating the building. There are a lot of people who haven't gotten out yet. But Stanley hesitated. From a cold and logical perspective, Frank was right. He had a job to do, and if Stanley listened to his personal feelings and tried to usher his brother out of there, a lot of innocent people might die. All right, he said. I understand. Heck, if we had something as simple as some dry ice, we could just freeze this thing. Oh. Oh. Do I even have to say it? Those have been paying attention. Do I even have to say it? Do I even have to say it? I'm gonna say, do you remember? Do you remember? Because I remember. Frank grimaced as he eyed the mom. Dry ice, huh? I don't suppose ice cream would do the trick. That'd be a waste of ice cream. You'd be better off just eating it. Of course, even dry ice would be a long shot in place of actual liquid nitrogen. The brothers looked at one another, and for a moment the tension dissolved into laughter. All right, Stanley said. I'll be back. Hey, Jack. Once this is all tidied up, I'm gonna need a drink. Let's you and me have a beer together. Sure, you got it. Stanley headed for the hotel lobby, which was still overflowing with guests. You made the right choice here. Stanley gave Kano a thump on the back, and the detective cracked a tiny grin. What about my choices, though? Debating his own next move, Stanley stepped away from the others and took out his cell phone. He made a call to his superior, Gordon. Oh, Gordon. It's me, he said. What's the situation? I hear the Japanese police want to put Maria Osawa under quarantine. I'm assuming that's on your orders, sir. It is. There are too many important people in Shibuya. We can't allow that virus to get loose. Besides, we now know that Alfard is after Hitomi Osawa. There's no reason to leave Maria at large any longer. If you put Maria Osawa under quarantine, she is going to die. I know that, but there will be far fewer victims as a result. Gordon's words made something inside Stanley snap. In that moment, he lost any inclination to report that he was with Maria. Failure to do so would be a dereliction of duty on his part. He knew that well enough. He knew it. But the fact couldn't overcome his revulsion at Gordon's callous attitude toward Maria. Victims are still victims, he said. What was that? Nothing, sir. I'll continue my operation to apprehend Alfard. Stanley hung up the phone. He didn't care if his superiors took action against him once this was all over. They intended to sacrifice one person in order to save the lives of countless more. From a purely objective standpoint, it was the right call. But what if that person was a loved one? What would they have done then? The dilemma gnawed at the back of Stanley's mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that it was wrong to just accept the lesser of two evils to sacrifice an innocent for the greater good. No, damn it. He would save that one life, and then save the lives of the many. He needed to find a way to avoid the so-called easy way out, no matter what it took. He wasn't about to add a second big regret to his life. Not this time. Saving Maria was the right thing to do. His judgment wasn't wrong. Of that, he was sure. He reaffirmed that to himself inwardly, over and over. Kano was watching Tatano prepare to depart. The group had put together a reasonable plan of action. Tatano and Kanan would head to the lab with Maria and attempt to get the antiviral for her. Stanley would accompany Kano and the others to the Scramble to apprehend Alphard. It was a two-pronged plan of attack. Still, could they really count on things going as smoothly as Kanan had suggested? Stanley thought back on her earlier words. Once Alphard has made contact with Hitomi, I'll call my cell phone. I have plenty of information Alphard might want to bargain for. I can negotiate with him directly. That meant that getting the password hinged on whatever deal they struck. What sort of things might Alphard request in exchange? Stanley cast a thoughtful look at Kanan. He was helping Tatano to carry Maria out of the room. Stanley doubted she'd answer if he just asked without her what her bargaining chips were. He held his tongue, watching as she left with the others. Whatever else happened, he needed to focus on capturing Alphard. He glanced at the monitor displays in the workroom. The disembodied sound of Alphard's voice from earlier crept back into his mind. I will appear at the rendezvous in person. After all, it wouldn't do for the star of the show to miss the final curtain. Those words notwithstanding, it seemed absurd that Alphard would actually show up in the flesh. Nationality, age, sex, so much about the terrorist mastermind was shrouded in mystery. Why would someone who had hidden so well for so long ever reveal their true identity? And yet Alphard had gone out of the way to claim that was precisely what was about to happen. It almost seemed like he'd made turning up in person a major selling point of the deal. I'm looking forward to meeting all of you then. There was no doubt about it. Alphard wanted them to expect him on site and in person. So, why would that be? He's using himself as bait to lure me and Kanan out. This is a near-perfect opportunity to wipe out the two people who are gunning for him the most. That being the case, how might he attempt to kill me once I'm at the Scramble? Stanley felt a sudden flash of insight. No, something was off here. His thought process was running well, each deduction logically following from the last, but at a time like this, that could be a very dangerous thing. Alphard may well have anticipated where his logic would lead. Stanley needed to assume that any clue he thought he'd found was something Alphard had left behind on purpose. So, maybe the suggestion that their target would come to the scene was a different kind of trap. At the risk of sending himself in circles, Stanley decided to rethink the whole case from the ground up. What was the single strangest part of this whole thing? There we go. Why had Alphard put an amateur like Daisuke Endo in charge of the kidnapping? It's Stanley's logic and reasoning spectacular. I love it. Sure, being able to get a heart for his daughter gave Daisuke a strong incentive, but still, there had to be a reason why he'd been chosen. If the kidnapping had failed, what would have happened then? Of course, this was Alphard they were dealing with. Maybe the possibility of failure was somehow part of the plan. Hell, Daisuke had managed to accidentally kidnap Maria instead of Hitomi, hadn't he? If Alphard had gone with a professional, that sort of mix-up would never have happened. And yet, even if that degree of uncertainty was acceptable, or even desirable, using Daisuke seemed like far too big a risk. There must be some other motive for bringing in Daisuke into the plan. Of course. Advantage. Using Daisuke must have provided some important advantage that outweighed his flaws. It was the only thing that made sense, which meant the reason Alphard or Daisuke carried out the kidnapping was... to create an alibi to keep his true identity, to carry out some other objective, right? To carry out some other objective. He'd set up the kidnapping, devised the ransom relay, and kept the full attention of the police on that. All the while, Alphard himself was working towards his true goal, getting Hitomi's blood, which meant that Daisuke kidnapping Maria by mistake had, in fact, been a misstep. That was why, in the end, Alphard had proposed trading the password for Hitomi's blood. Could that really be it? Stanley decided to take it up with the man himself. Mr. Endo, let me ask you something. Did you know Hitomi had a twin sister before the kidnapping? I didn't know. So when did you find out? After it had Maria kidnapped. The organ trafficker took one look at her and said I had the wrong girl. Said I was supposed to have abducted the younger one. He never mentioned Hitomi having a twin sister before this all started? No. If I'd known, I'd have been a lot more careful. Alphard had certainly known that the Osawa girls were twins, but despite the added risk that fact implied, he hadn't told Daisuke. There was only one logical conclusion. Daisuke's mistake hadn't been an accident. Alphard had intended for the wrong sister to get kidnapped. By using an amateur, Alphard had set up the police to write off Daisuke's kidnapping of the wrong target as a simple misstep. Had Daisuke been brought in simply in the name of camouflage? But why? Alphard was after Hitomi's blood. Daisuke was after Hitomi's heart. They both wanted the same thing, so why target Maria instead? Stanley's train of logic had run out of steam again. Still, he was sure he was on the right track. He just needed to keep following till he found out where that track would lead. I'm picturing Stanley dancing around in the background. Where's the storeroom where you were keeping Maria? He asked. Daisuke hung his head. It's out behind the shop. Why do you ask? Would you mind showing me? There's something I'd like to check. At this point, he needed to go back over everything right from the beginning. He followed Daisuke out to the storeroom. Speaking of this storeroom, Daisuke said as they were walking to the back part of the building, there's something I've been wondering about. Just how did Maria manage to escape in the first place? You're certain you locked her in? Stanley asked. Daisuke nodded. At 8 o'clock this morning, the organ trafficker came by to check up on her. I made sure to lock the place back up after he left. I see. That visit must have been when Maria was injected with the UA virus. It makes sense, based on her working timeline of when we expect her to go symptomatic. They got to the storeroom. They spotted the padlock that had held it shut lying broken on the ground. Daisuke picked it up, then opened the storeroom door. Oh, look at this mess. It was obvious immediately that merchandise had been stolen. I doubt Maria did this, Daisuke said. Maybe some thieves broke in. He made a quick inspection, assessing what had been taken. Some digital cameras and laptop computers were missing. Kiryu! Kiryu did this! They even brought this up earlier. Yeah, Kiryu stole it. Oh, interesting. Yeah. This looks like the work of some local thugs. This kind of thing has happened to me a few times before. Daisuke let out a sigh of exasperation. Stanley, meanwhile, was carefully looking around inside the storeroom. Where did you have Maria Osawa? He asked. Behind those cardboard boxes. The boxes he indicated were piled high, closing off one corner of the room. If Maria were unconscious behind them, the burglars might well have never noticed her. So, Maria was able to escape from the storeroom thanks to the burglars breaking the lock, Stanley mused. Just what impact had that stroke of misfortune had on Alphard's plan, he wondered. What had Alphard planned to do with Maria if nobody had broken in? He was going to trade her for Hitomi, he was going to kill her, he was going to release her. Trade her for Hitomi? He was going to trade her for Hitomi. It certainly seemed reasonable enough. He needed to kidnap Maria in order to infect her with the virus, first and foremost, and then she had indeed been injected with it at 8 o'clock that morning. Next, Alphard would have carried out a hostage exchange for Hitomi in order to obtain her blood. Maria would be free to go, but infected with UA. What purpose would that serve? It was simple enough to deduce. Once he learned that Maria had the virus, Kenji Osawa was certain to take action. He would bring her into the storage facility in order to administer the antiviral, just as he did with Hitomi. That meant that the storage facility would be opened once more. That was what Alphard was really after, a way in, so he could destroy the antiviral samples at the lab. It was the only logical conclusion. Infecting Hitomi 6 days earlier had ensured that she would be carrying the DDS in her body, but it had also served as a sort of dry run for today. If it turned out that Osawa wasn't able to access the antiviral storage on his own, the entire plan would fall apart. Utomi had been a test case in order to make sure. The negotiations at the Scramble were almost certainly a smokescreen. Alphard wanted to lure Stanley, the others to the Scramble in order to clear the way for an assault on the lab in the meantime. The first order of business was to stop him from getting inside. But how? Did Stanley leave the stakeout at the Scramble for Kano and the others while he headed to the lab himself? He couldn't decide that alone. He headed back into the shop with Daisuke to see where things stood with the others. But he really is just like logicking this out. It's great. Okay. Jack. He's not even Stanley. He's just Jack. I love it. Jack. Jack. Look at that. We have a full 5 party members again. I love it. I love it. I love this game. Okay. So we're all kept out. Kano, let's continue. We'll leave Minorikawa for later. All over, you'll have to go have a beer with me. Kano couldn't help but smile. Okay. We hurried out of the workroom. Kano glanced at his watch. It was coming up on 6:50. Pretty soon they'd have to head for the Scramble. But Achi still hadn't returned. We need to head out soon, he said to Utomi. You said 6:50, she replied. There's still 2 more minutes to go. Kano let out a tiny sigh. He shared Utomi's fervent hope that the reinforcements would come, but not her confidence. If Achi didn't reappear, Kano would be left to protect Utomi all by himself, and to try to apprehend Alphard as well. Would he be able to pull it off if it came to that? Wait for Achi. We gotta wait for Shadow. No, he'd never be able to do it on his own. He decided to wait for Achi, accepting that they'd be late. The clock kept up its steady ticking. With each minuscule movement of the second hand, Kano felt the tightness growing in his chest. A minute passed. 2 minutes. Time was of the essence. They couldn't keep waiting any longer. He told me, I don't like having to do this, but we can't wait any longer. Seeing the look of a determination on Kano's face, she gave a tiny, reluctant nod. Keep out! Okay. Alright, I think we are, well and truly fully kept out now. So, do we have to Minorikawa? Let's see. That's the jump for Stanley. And then that's the jump for Tatno, right? Yeah. So, our next character, we got a Minorikawa. We got a Minorikawa now. Cheeky can't move. No, we get to Minorikawa. We don't have to Minorikawa. We get to Minorikawa. That's good. Yes, we have an attitude of Minorikawa-tude. Hang in there, Cheeky. Just keep it together. Minorikawa rushed to her side and offered her a hand. Surely it hardly matters at this point. You're not going to make it on time regardless, Katayama said coldly. And in any case, if 4-star General Gossip doesn't get released, it's Mr. Toyama who's going to be in trouble, not you. I dare say the world would be better off with 1/3 rate gossip rag less anyway. Shut your mouth! Chiaki snapped. If the gossip doesn't come out, I am going to be in trouble. An article I've written is supposed to be in the next month's issue. It's a piece I've worked my very hardest on to the very end. A piece Mr. Mino saw fit to put in print. And so if that goes away, yeah, I'll be in trouble, all right. Chiaki's legs wobbled as she struggled to get back to her feet. Chiaki, Katayama said, your zeal is a marvelous thing, worthy of admiration even. But when it comes to work, results are all that matters. I'm sad to have to put it that way, but I must be honest. It's just common decency. Katayama glanced at his pocket watch. You have 57 minutes and 10 seconds remaining. At this rate, you won't even make it to the interview venue before your time's up. Frankly, not Frankie, I don't think even a further extension of your deadline would make any difference in the end. Damn it. Minorukawa ground his teeth. He wondered if he should just leave Chiaki here and go interview SOS by himself. He could expand the article on SOS, then work a small part of Chiaki's interview piece into at least fill the layout. Right now, the single most important thing was getting the magazine out of the door for Toyama's sake. But if he did cut most of Chiaki's copy, after all she'd done, he might wind up totally killing her passion for being a writer. I have to stop waffling. Professionals don't let their personal feelings dictate their decisions. I can help Chiaki work through her emotional struggles later. Chiaki! That's enough! The young woman got to her feet, staggering as she began to climb the stairs. I'm not giving up, she said under her breath. I can't give up now. Though obviously in pain, she struggled to keep her legs moving. Damn, I can't do it. Look how hard she's fighting to stay in the game. I can't tell her I don't need her article now. Releasing the next issue of the Gossip wasn't just going to save Toyama. It would save Chiaki as well. Minorukawa couldn't abandon either one of them, which left him with a hell of a dilemma. He needed to make a decision. If he didn't stop wavering soon, they'd be out of time. But try as he might, he couldn't come up with a plan. Then he had her familiar voice from behind him. If you're wondering what path to take, allow my taxi to be your guide. Oh! Whoa, 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 whoa! Oh! Oh! Minorukawa spun around to see Kimazuka standing there. This is just unreasonably cool. It's peak. It's peak. It's peak. This whole game is peak. Oh. Is there really any better trope than the, hey, I see I made it just in time? Really? Is there? Where to, sir? The driver asked. Despite his polite demeanor, his pride was obvious. Mr. Kimazuka, I appreciate the thought, but with this traffic... Traffic? I see nothing of the sort. Okay, sure, but... Minorukawa was well aware of Kimazuka's capabilities, but the prospect of cutting through the chaos that currently filled the streets was more than a little daunting. When you know this town as well as I do, there's nowhere you can't go. All right. What other choice do I have? Guess I've got to trust you. This will be my last request of the day. Minorukawa pointed down the street. Take us to the Labyrinth and Uraharajuku. Did you have any place in mind? Take us to Inferno. Take us to Inferno and Uraharajuku. Inferno in Uraharajuku? The bar? Kimazuka quirked an eyebrow. Yes. Is something the matter? No. Nothing at all. Hurry up and get in. As soon as Minorukawa and the others had climbed into the cab, Kimazuka tore off through Shibuya's network of narrow side streets. The passengers in the back seat jostled roughly back and forth to the sound of screeching tires. This is altogether far too excessive, Katayama murmured, wincing as his head bounced repeatedly against the window. To think we allow such inconsiderate driving here in this country. Chiaki, meanwhile, had opened her laptop and was somehow working furiously to finish her copy. The sound of her fingers clicking across the keys echoed within the vehicle. How's it going, Chiaki? Minorukawa asked. Just a little more. Her eyes were glued to her monitor, her face all seriousness. Kimazuka glanced over at Minorukawa. If I may ask, sir, what business do you have at this bar? Just a little interview. I hear a local gang called SOS uses the place as their big hangout. You're interviewing SOS? Sir, I feel it may be best not to get too involved with that lot. There was something about the driver's warning that seemed a little off. Do your taxi driver connections tell you what SOS is up to? Minorukawa asked. Originally, they were something of a vigilante corps in the name of keeping the neighborhood clean and safe. But lately, I hear nothing but bad things about them. Those loan sharks said something very similar. Minorukawa reminded himself that he'd better be on his guard. Katayama chimed in. And just how do you plan to go about interviewing a gang like this? That's nothing for you to worry about. I have a plan! Oh. And just what exactly is this plan? It's a secret! Katayama gave him a derisive grin. Clearly, he wasn't impressed. Minorukawa turned to look at Chiaki. She appeared too engrossed in her copy to even hear the conversation. I realize this is for work, Kimazuka said worriedly, but do you really need to take such risks? Yes, I do. Minorukawa thought back to that look on Toyama's face. That look when he'd finally regained his confidence. He couldn't let Heaven Publishing go under. Toyama provided the canvas on which Minorukawa shared his art with the world. Thinking about it now, Minorukawa realized he'd always been chasing Toyama's shadow. Though it was galling to admit, that man had been the ideal Minorukawa strove to live up to. That was why he'd hated seeing Toyama reduced to such a pathetic state. He wanted Toyama to remain indomitable, to keep busting down any and all obstacles in his own peculiar way. Still, Minorukawa wasn't about to voice these feelings aloud. He felt more than a little embarrassed to be taking it all so personally. When you take on a job, you give it 100% every time. That's what makes you a professional, he said. Wouldn't you agree? I do indeed, Katayama chimed in, but you'll have to demonstrate that 100% in the limited time you have left, which, by the way, is 51 minutes and 30 seconds, and I will not budge in the slightest on that submission deadline. Please do keep that in mind. The man took another look at his watch. I've got half a mind to break that thing, Minorukawa told him. Breaking my watch will not stop time. Minorukawa shot him a furious glare, but Katayama's composure was unwavering. The guy was unflappable, and the only way Minorukawa was going to be able to put him in his place was to meet his damn deadline. Easier said than done, though. He'd want to use 30 of the 51 minutes he'd still had to write this article. That only left him 20 or so to get the material. Kimazuka suddenly slammed on the brakes and the cab skidded to a halt. Minorukawa stared through the windshield in shock and saw a smallish, boxy minivan weaving erratically along the road. Whoa, look out! That thing's heading our way! Don't worry, sir, the driver replied. Just leave this to me. Keeping his cool, Kimazuka dexterously steered them clear of the oncoming vehicle. As the minivan sped past, an eerily cold breeze wafted over the taxi. The vehicle is being driven by the members of the Wandering Angels Theater Troupe. They're on their way to return the dry ice machine they used in the performance to Endo Electronics. The machine is malfunctioning, continually spitting out white plumes of carbon dioxide. The troupe members inside the van are beginning to suffer from oxygen deprivation and are driving around Shibuya in a daze. Will they be able to make it to Endo Electronics in the end? What the heck was that? Minorukawa asked. I'm not sure, Kimazuka said, but let's hurry on our way. Nimbly manipulating the gear stick, he stomped on the gas once more. Here we are, sir. They'd pulled up outside of a dilapidated old pool hall. You're a lifesaver. Minorukawa clapped a hand on Kimazuka's shoulder. Just be sure to be careful, sir. Minorukawa nodded. Huh? What? Chiaki asked, looking up. What are we being careful about? Nothing, Minorukawa said. You just wait here in the car. You've still got that copy to finish up, yeah? Well, yes. All right, then. Chiaki frowned but resumed her typing. And you wait here, too, Minorukawa said to Katayama. But of course, that goes without saying. Incidentally, you have 49 minutes and 6 seconds remaining. Minorukawa did some quick mental math. With the half hour he'd already set aside, that left him 19 minutes. However dangerous SOS might be, he couldn't afford to hesitate for even a single second. Bracing himself, he stepped out of the taxi and headed for the pool hall. Phew. Minorukawa took a deep breath as he approached the grimy door. Here goes. He drew his leg back and gave the door a hearty kick. Oh boy. The mob of young men inside the bar turned at one at the sound of the door crashing open. Who the hell are you? Several of them started toward him belligerently. Just calm down and hear me out, he said. I've come to interview you. Interview us? What the hell for? These were hot-headed punks, all right. They seemed to be itching for a confrontation. Minoru felt like a punch might come flying his way at any moment. Then, another voice called out from further back. Hold up, guys. It was a young man seated in the far back corner of the bar. His air of authority marked him as the gang's leader. That must be Susumu, then, Minoru thought. When you say interview, do you mean for TV? Or like a magazine? Mind telling us who you are? The name's Minoru. I'm a freelance journalist. I'm doing a magazine piece about young people in Shibuya. All I'm asking for is for you guys to answer a few questions. Here's the answer to the science quiz from last time. Methane. Methane has been tapped as a potential new energy source to replace fossil fuels or atomic power, but there are concerns about its tendency to exacerbate the global warming process. It is extremely flammable. The methane produced by food waste has been known to cause garbage trucks to catch fire. Well, there you go. I was hanging on the edge of my seat on that one, so glad we found out. Huh. Susumu sounded less than enthused. Just 5 minutes, Minoru said. What do you say? Nah, I'm not in the best of moods right now. Go on, get out of here. Right, Minoru thought. He's gonna make things difficult. But he hadn't expected these troublemakers to just up and accept an offer to appear in print. Now was when the real battle would begin. Guess I'll just have to write my piece without your help then. Susumu took the bait and shot him a look. Write about what exactly? Your little warehouse raids. Warehouse raids? Susumu raised an eyebrow. What are you talking about? Really now? You're gonna tell me you don't know your boys are dealing in stolen goods? SOS doesn't steal, man. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Oh yeah? Why don't you ask those two over there? He spotted the two fellows he'd seen arguing earlier at the scene of the explosion. Now he pointed them out. Their faces betrayed their alarm. Susumu glared at them. Is this true? They averted their eyes and said nothing. I asked you a question. Have you been stealing stuff? After a long moment of surly hesitation, both young men nodded. You idiots! Susumu marched up to the two and without warning decked them both. How dare you sully the SOS name! As the two gang members cowered, he continued to punch them repeatedly. Okay, enough with the beatdown. Minoru stepped up to intervene. Let's get down to business here. I won't reveal anything about the warehouse raids. In exchange, you give me my interview. How's that? Not a bad deal, I'd say. But Susumu ignored him, continuing his pummeling of the pair. Whoa, hey! Nobody's gonna play nice with the guy who flies off the handle and beats on people, you know? What'd you just say? Well, look at yourself. You're clearly not the cream of the crop here, kid. At that, Susumu's fists finally fell still. The rowdy bar went completely silent. Say that one more time. Dare you? I'll put your ass in the ground. The gang leader's eyes were red with rage. Minoru snorted, unafraid. Huh. That's the exact sort of line I'd expect from a total wuss who's all bark and no bite. Shut your damn mouth! Get the hell out of here! Oh, this is hilarious. SOS's top dog is such a yappy little puppy. Susumu smiled like an animal. You son of a bitch. I am gonna beat your ass! Mr. Mino, I'm all finished! An ebullient voice resounded suddenly through the bar, cheerful and full of energy. Originally the term indicated a state of bubbling or boiling, so it's efficiently a fancy way of describing someone as bubbly. Oh no! Chiki! Minoru looked and saw that both she and Katayama had appeared in the doorway. I finished my copy! Could you please look it over for me? She thrust out her laptop proudly. Susumu stared in bewilderment. Who the hell are you? Oh, I was under the impression you SOX folks were being interviewed. Chiki broke off haltingly. Yeah, you're right about that. One by one, gang members started to close in around her. Well, it's just, you look like you're really angry is all. Oh, do we now? That's because we are pretty damn angry. Good grief, Katayama groaned. It would seem that getting your interview is quite impossible. By the way, you only have another— You shut up! Minoru snapped as Katayama peered at his watch. Just leave this to me. You two hurry up and get out of here. No way, Cheeky said. What? Why not? Because I want you to read my copy, Mr. Mino. She looked him right in the eye. Let's see. It was no time for an editing session. He had to wrap up the SOS interview and fast. He didn't have much of a choice to read over Cheeky's copy. We got to interview SOS, right? This was no time for an editing session. He had to wrap up the SOS interview and fast. All right, Minorukawa said. I'll read it after I'm done with this. No way, Cheeky repeated. I'm not leaving you all by yourself in a place like this. She refused to budge. Enough of the chit-chat! One of the gang members reached out to grab Cheeky's laptop. Knock it off! Don't touch that! She struggled to resist. Leave the girl alone, you scumbags! Minorukawa barked. The young man in the bar stopped and turned. Suzumu was quick to respond. Screw you, man. Who are you calling scumbags here? Any guy who raises a hand to a lady is a scumbag. If you're looking for a fight, you can fight me. Just get your hands off the girl. Minorukawa did his best to look unafraid as a couple dozen vicious gazes now turned back on him. Bring it on, Suzumu said. Hey, someone go stand lookout out front. He snapped his fingers sharply. Get him. At the signal, Susumu's men quickly closed in on Minorukawa. It was like being caught up in a tsunami. Oh, is this a bad end? He took a hard punch to the face and his vision went blurry. Before he could react, he was hit again, twice, thrice, with punches and kicks. The moment his first assailant paused, another joined the assault. 4 blows, 5 blows, 6. Minorukawa lost count somewhere around 30. A metallic taste filled his mouth and he could feel his consciousness fading. All the strength was being battered from his body. He couldn't even tell if he was standing on his feet or lying on his back. And finally, he felt himself crumple to the floor. Even then, the beating did not let up. As he writhed helplessly, the young man kicked him in the gut over and over. Stop it! He heard Cheeky shriek. You're gonna kill him! Okay. Is this a bad end or no? Eventually, Minorukawa forced himself to go limp. Finally, the kicking stopped. Ah, oh, crap, one of the thugs muttered, sounding panicky. Did we take this a little bit too far? Mr. Mino! Cheeky rushed to Minorukawa's side, sobbing. Please! She cried out. Answer me! He held his breath and said nothing. Mr. Mino! Tears streaked down her cheeks. She shook him desperately. Don't worry, he gasped out at last, holding up a hand to stave her off. She let out a yelp of surprise, staring at his battered face. He could feel blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. He turned his grisly visage on the gang members as he painfully rose to his feet. Abruptly, Minorukawa broke into peals of mocking laughter. Mr. Mino? Cheeky stared at him, aghast. He only laughed the harder. It seems he took a few too many blows to the head. The poor thing. Katayama averted his eyes, unable to watch. Minorukawa shot at an accusing finger out of the crowd. Looks like I win this round. What? Suzumu blinked, dumbstruck. Don't you get it? Minorukawa said thickly around his bruised tongue. What am I saying? You're a bunch of idiots. Now then, if you'll pardon me. Oh, I get it. Minorukawa was halfway to the exit when Katayama's exclamation rang out. You were planning all along to let these guys beat you up, huh? Minorukawa jerked to a halt, his shoulders trembling. You knew they'd turn down the interview, and so by letting yourself get beat up, you'd have something to put in an article, yeah? It's a bit bogus, maybe, but I guess it's one way to get material to fill your pages. Minorukawa broke out into a cold sweat. Shut up, you idiot. But Katayama continued with his oh-so-brilliant analysis. You sure pulled a fast one on this gang here. I wonder what sort of headline your piece should have. The Twilight of Shibuya's legendary street crew? Former vigilante squad, now mere gang of common thugs? Something like that, maybe? Suzumu stared daggers at Minorukawa. Go on. I dare you to write that up. Then we really will put your ass in the ground. He moved to block the path of the door, clutching a broken beer bottle in one hand. You moron! Minoakawa bellowed at Katayama. I was this close to pulling it off! Ah, well, that's a shame, isn't it? Katayama replied. Minoakawa rolled his eyes. Gee, you think? Susumu slowly advanced on them, beer bottle at the ready. Incidentally, Katayama said, you have 40 minutes and 7 seconds left. Good luck. Minoakawa hung his head. Was everything futile at this point? Helpless, pointless, and ineffectual, not to be confused with feudal, which refers to the socio-political system of the Middle Ages involving lords and vassals and fiefdoms. All right, cool your jets. I'd say that's quite enough. Susumu stopped and spun around. Kimazuka had entered the bar. The taxi driver stared out sternly from behind his sunglasses. All the young men in the bar fell silent. Minoakawa and his companions exchanged glances. Oh man, you? Susumu's face twisted up in awkward embarrassment. Kimazuka's tone was light and playful, but intimidating nevertheless. Whoa, hey now. That's no way to address your teacher. Teacher? Minoakawa blurted in disbelief. Kimazuka nodded. Yeah, until last year I used to be a teacher, but I got into a bit of a dispute with my school, so I moved on. These guys in here are all former students of mine. Sorry that they're such a bunch of good-for-nothings. Wow, Cheeky said. I'd have never guessed. I thought since I wasn't their teacher anymore, it wasn't my place to butt in, but I couldn't sit idly by and let one of my customers take a beating. Kimazuka turned back to Susumu. This guy totally played you, every last one of you. Susumu bit his lip in frustration. Still, it's hard to imagine anyone would want to take a beating from this many guys all at once, so it's hardly your fault for falling for it. Kimazuka had switched gears from taxi driver to street-smart mentor. You guys lost this one, he said, and for that, you need to give him his interview. No way. Susumu looked disgusted. Look here, kid, Kimazuka said. Let yourself save some face and help the man out. And maybe you won't come off as a bunch of total idiots in his article. He flashed an amicable grin. Well, when you put it that way, fine. All right. Susumu blew out his breath in resignation. Susumu, you can't just let yourself cave like that. The remark had come from a particularly nasty-looking young fellow who slouched on the bar sofa. Minoakawa recognized him, the kid he'd encountered earlier that afternoon, wandering around with a wooden cudgel. You shut up, Kiryu, Susumu said. So what, you're just gonna let SOS make a mockery of itself? Kiryu demanded. The gang leader let out an annoyed growl, but said nothing. And you still think you've got what it takes to run Shibuya? Shut up! I've already said I'll do it! Kiryu sneered sullenly at Susumu's outburst. Mr. Mino! Minoakawa was just letting out a sigh of relief at being able to get his interview when Shiki scurried back up to him. Please, can you read my copy now? Her face showed a strange mixture of confidence and unease. All right, he said resignedly. Let me see it. The proofing deadline was drawing steadily nearer. Still, if the piece wasn't good enough, he'd have to make her rewrite it. Again. He wasn't going to compromise on quality. Bracing himself, Minoakawa stared at the monitor. Shiki swallowed hard, so anxious that it was audible. Minoakawa gave the piece a fast once-over and read it again more closely. When he was done, he closed his eyes, considering. Cheeky held her breath, waiting for his response. It's okay. She looked back at him blankly for a long moment. Really? It's really okay. Is it really okay? It really is. Really okay! Minoakawa watched in surprise as she broke down in tears. Thank you so much. Cheeky bowed profusely. He gave her an affectionate little ruffle atop her head. She wiped at her face with her palms, scrubbing the tears away. So I guess I never really told you what sort of articles I want to write and all. No, I don't think you have. Well, I mean, I want to write socially conscious exposés like you do, Mr. Mino. And so, to hear you say that an article I wrote is okay, that makes me really, happy, I guess. Or maybe moved? Her eyes were still bright with emotion. Well then, really? There was actually another writer who took inspiration from his work and who strove to be like him. Minoru Arakawa had never thought a day like this would come. It was a peculiar feeling. He'd always been the follower, chasing after interviews in order to be more like Toyama. It made him feel both bashful and proud that the skill and soul he'd honed might be passed on to the next generation. Right, I should be off. Imazuka gave Minoru Arakawa a slight nod. Minoru Arakawa returned the gesture, but more deeply. You really have been a tremendous help today. I'm not sure where I'd even be right now if you hadn't been there for me. Oh no, not at all. I was just driving a customer around where he asked me to go. Oh, that's right. I still owe you a fare. Opening his wallet, Minoru Arakawa saw he had only a 10,000 yen bill. Still, now was no time to be frugal. Keep the change, he said as he handed it over. But even as he said it, Kimazuka was already handing him some money back. Here, I insist. The driver had already counted out the exact change in advance. You really are a pro, huh? Minoru Arakawa took the money and stuffed it into his pocket. We'll meet again, somewhere out there on the streets of Shibuya. Kimazuka pointed his index finger at Minoru Arakawa's face. Minoru Arakawa responded in kind. Two guys pointing at each other. After that, the interview with SOS went off without a hitch. Now that the tension was diffused, these were just a bunch of ordinary young guys. The juxtaposition of their appearance and their behavior would make an interesting piece. So, about what you said earlier, Susumu said once Minoru Arakawa had finished his questioning. About how I'm not the cream of the crop? Oh, yeah, that. I just said it to get you worked up. Don't worry about it. Well, let me just ask you what you really think then. How do you think I could be a better leader? I don't know. I'm not really the sort of guy who wants to stand at the top, you know? But I guess I can tell you two things that'll make things go more smoothly with you and your buddies. Susumu leaned in, listening intently. Forgiveness, and also trust. Minoru Arakawa chewed over his own words. The events of the day replayed in the back of his mind. He had forgiven Toyama for his faked suicide, and trusted that he'd regain his reporter's edge. He'd forgiven Chiaki for her bungled interviews, and trusted that she'd grow as a journalist. In the end, that's what it was that had helped him through forgiveness, followed by trust. Susumu grumbled softly. Forgiveness and trust, huh? Doesn't sound so easy. People gravitate towards somebody who can handle things when they get tough. With that, Minoru Arakawa got to his feet. Now we've got all the articles we need covered. Shiki rushed over to his side. Well, I guess we still need Mr. Toyama's piece. I just got off the phone with my office, Katayama said casually. It seems they've already received the data from him. Oh, what? Guess he really can get the job done when he implies himself. Minoru Arakawa felt an inner surge of pride. Now then, he indicated Katayama. How much time do we have left? 30 minutes remaining, Katayama replied, eyeing his watch. 30 minutes, huh? Looks like we might make it after all. Cheeky, laptop! Right! With a beaming grin, Cheeky held out her computer. Minoru Arakawa got ready to start typing. But then, a young man barged into the bar. It's Achi Endo. He's come to ask the members of SOS to help with the planned operation down at the Scramble. Keep out. The newcomer hurried over to where Susumu was sitting and promptly prostrated himself on the floor. Whatever this was about, it looked like a big deal. Who was this kid? Gangs Feelings looked decidedly mixed. I need people to bring a guy down. I'm here to ask for your help. I know I have no right to ask you this, but please, I really need your help. As Minorukawa listened to the young man's conversation with Susumu, he could feel his blood start pumping. It sounded like they were talking about the terrorist plot in which Shibuya had become embroiled. Hey, Chiaki, he said quietly. Did you hear that just now? I did! I'm not sure I follow all of it, but it definitely has the whiff of a major scoop. Minorukawa shot her a daring grin. So what's the play here, Chiaki? We interview him, of course. But we have only 30 minutes left, right? So we take 10 minutes for our conversation and use the remaining 20 to write up the piece. I'll help you out. You learned good, kiddo. Minorukawa ruffled Chiaki's hair again. They both blushed profusely, gripped by a surge of excitement. Why are you doing this? I can't make any sense of it whatsoever. Kadayama stood peering at them skeptically. If you write up the piece you just did your interview for, you'll make your deadline. Why go out of your way to trouble yourself further? It's no trouble, Minorukawa said. I'm just doing what a professional does. That's all. Kadayama let out a solemn sigh. Good grief. He looked at his pocket watch again, and then snapped it shut. Well, if you aren't concerned about the time, then do as you like, I suppose. I'll admit, you've made me quite curious to read this magazine you're putting together. Minorukawa and Chiaki rolled their eyes as they turned away. Already they were making their way over to Susumu and his gang. If the interviews aren't over until you have what you need, you refuse to let them be over. You spend every last second you have to do the best job you can. That's what being a professional journalist is all about. Minorukawa cracked his knuckles and stepped between the two young men. Sounds like you've got an interesting story. Mind letting me hear it too? So good. Is this the end for him? And it's the end of Minorukawa's story. Oh! End of his story. And oh, there's more. Oh, there's more. We have not heard the last of Minorukawa, let me tell you. All right, we got to go back and do our jump. A young man barged into the bar. Here we go. Wait. Why can't we do Achi? What's going on? Minorukawa studies should be a class every journalist is required to take. Yes. 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 The world if Minorukawa. Yes. I agree. All right, hang on. All right, rushing out the door with the battle cry. Achi sped on his way. Do we have to, like, do this to get the keep out? Did I not technically get the keep out? Traffic on Tokenzaka was at a near standstill. Had there been some sort of major accident? As Achi ran along the roadside, he heard a middle-aged man screaming angrily. You've got to be kidding me. What do you mean, no trains are stopping at Shibuya? The guy was red in the face. What the heck is going on? Achi felt compelled to stop and check things out. Calm down, old man. Achi ignored him. Let's talk to Rumi and Shizuo. What the heck is going on? Achi felt compelled to stop and check things out. Calm down, Dad. The young woman with the man must be his daughter, then. How am I supposed to do that? You heard what that boy said. We have to get out of Shibuya right away. Whoa. Achi got a good look at the young woman's face. She was gorgeous. He had the feeling he'd seen her on TV before or something. She was probably an actress, but he couldn't recall her name. Wow, this is the best shot of Rumi we've gotten all game. Well, Achi muttered to himself, you might be pretty, but you're no Hitomi. Once more, he broke out into a run. There were a whole bunch of people walking in the direction of Route 246. It looked like folks really couldn't use the trains right now. Was this some consequence of Maria being infected with the Uwa virus? Then I'd better hurry. We're the only people who can fix this. Yeah! With another cry to pump himself up, Achi bolted down the sidewalk counter to the throng. Finally, he arrived at SOS's hideout. 2 young men were standing by the door as lookouts. Achi recognized one of them. It was the kid whose so-called buddies had tried to shake him down earlier that afternoon. They roused themselves as Achi approached. "Hey, I need to see Susumu." "No can do. He's in the middle of something right now." The lookouts made no move to let him through. Achi felt a surge of resentment towards Susumu. If he'd still been with SOS, he'd never try to post members on guard duty like they were low-ranking Yakuza thugs. I need to see him. It's important. Fine, then. Shove the 2 aside. Yeah, we gotta get violent. Fine, then I guess I'll have to do this the hard way. Achi forcibly shoved the 2 of them aside. But the 2 recovered quickly before he could get in the door. They grabbed hold of him and pushed him away. "Look, I don't have time to screw around. Just go and tell Susumu that Achi's here." At the mention of his name, the 2 lookouts exchanged wary glances. "All right, I'll go ask him." One of the lookouts headed inside, leaving Achi alone with the kid he'd helped out earlier. "Do they always stick you on guard duty?" The boy didn't reply. "Back when I ran with SOS, we never needed anyone on the lookout. We were just a bunch of guys who loved Shibuya and who had a fun time hanging out with each other. That's all it was, really." "It's not Susumu's fault that SOS changed," the boy said, somewhat fearfully. "Lately, it's Kiryu who's been driving things." "Kiryu? Oh, yeah. That guy." Achi recalled his earlier run-in with him. That guy was an arrogant bully. "Kiryu's planning to steal Susumu's throne." "What for?" The boy took a nervous look at the door before hurriedly continuing. "He's trying to expand SOS's influence, and he's got a lot of people on his side. Right now, the gang is kind of split into 2 factions, Susumu's guys and Kiryu's guys." Finally, Achi understood what was going on. The gang members had all been acting so weird because they were caught up in some kind of internal struggle. Kiryu goes around recruiting new followers by force, and if he doesn't like you, he dishes out punishment. This month alone, he sent 8 people to the hospital. SOS is a total mess, man. This plan of mine might not work out after all. Achi felt a sinking sense of despair. If SOS was ravaged with infighting, it was doubtful they'd heed the dangerous request he had for them. "But even still, I want to be a part of this gang," the boy muttered. Achi peered at him in surprise. "Why? They shake you down for dues? Stick you on guard duty? That's not a decent way to treat someone." "I look up to Susumu. He treats me like he would anyone else, even though I'm way down at the bottom. And it's not just me. Susumu always puts the members of the gang before himself. That's why I want to stick with SOS." "Uh-huh. So that's it, huh?" Susumu really had been trying his best, and the members of SOS, some of them at least, admired him for it and stuck by him. "Thanks," Achi said. The kid gave him a dubious look. Achi didn't know if Susumu would help him out or not, but he knew it was still worth putting their disagreements aside in order to ask. The door opened and the other lookout returned. "Susumu says to come on in." Achi nodded and strode inside. "Keep out." Okay. Now we go to Minorikawa. We jump. Alright. Get ready to start typing. Young man. It's Achi Endo. Alright, we'll pop over to him. No. Come on in. Okay. Alright, hang on. I'm gonna grab a drink refresh, and then we're gonna keep reading. The scent of alcohol and cigarettes washed over him. Susumu sat on the sofa at the far end of the bar. It was where Achi used to sit back in the day. "What do you want?" Susumu asked immediately. Achi walked up to him and they got down on his hands and knees. "Huh? What are you doing down there? The hell is this all about? I need people to bring a guy down. I'm here to ask for your help." The crowd around him flew into an uproar. Peals of mocking laughter rang in Achi's ears. I know I have no right to ask you this, but please, I really need your help." "Just some guy, huh? Who?" "He's an international terrorist trying to get his hands on some wonder drug for a killer virus. If we don't catch him, somebody I know is going to die. And that's not all. He might try to unleash the killer virus here in this city." Susumu bust out laughing. "Some kind of joke? You all right in the head there, Achi?" The other gang members followed his lead, unleashing another storm of mockery. The laughter continued for quite some time. No, we got it. Achi said nothing. Yeah. Achi said nothing. He endured the ridicule and simply stared up at Susumu. As patiently as he could, he waited for Susumu to give the proverbial nod. Finally, the laughter subsided, and Susumu crouched down and got in Achi's face. "Is that how you go about asking someone a favor?" Susumu growled menacingly. "If you have a problem with me kowtowing like this, I can apologize some other way, all you want. But don't you care that I just told you Shibuya is in danger?" Achi's voice was unwavering. "But face it, Susumu. Isn't Shibuya the reason everyone here hangs out with each other? If you're telling me you don't want to keep our town safe, then I won't ask you guys for anything again. I withdraw my request." The two glared into each other's eyes. Then, before Susumu could reply, an odd man stepped in between them. "Sounds like you've got an interesting story," he said. "Mind letting me hear it too?" "You again? Didn't you already get your interview?" Susumu rolled his eyes. "I think Grovels here might be telling the truth." Grovels. The newcomer's face was all seriousness. "It lines up with the information I have. Hey, Grovels, you got a second?" "My name's not Grovels," Achi growled. "It's Achi. I'm Minoru Kawa, magazine reporter. And I know a bit about that stuff you were saying just now. The killer virus you mentioned is called the Uwa virus. That wonder drug is an antiviral medication, and the person you know who might die is Maria Osawa. Am I right?" Achi was almost too shocked for words. How do you know all that?" Minoru Kawa ignored him and turned to the SOS leader. "Susumu," he said, "something really is going down in Shibuya. What are you going to do about it, boss?" Susumu bit his lip. He looked pretty conflicted. "Sounds good to me," someone called out. "Let's give him a hand." Achi turned to see where the voice had come from. It was Kiryu. "You shut up," Susumu said with a glare. "Break out of your rut, old man," Kiryu sneered. "Achi here is right. Isn't keeping our beloved Shibuya safe what SOS does?" He slipped an arm around Achi's shoulders. "You're okay with that, right, Achi? Me going against Susumu's orders to help you out?" Kiryu's lips pulled back in a broad, unsettling grin. "But first, we have unfinished business, you and I. I mean, I'm willing to lend a hand even though you ditched the gang and all, but first we've got to settle our score, here and now. You understand, don't you?" "Yeah, you're right." Kiryu grinned hungrily. "It's guillotine time!" A bunch of the gang members started up an eager clamor at Kiryu's pronouncement. In a matter of moments, Achi was grabbed from all sides and hoisted up onto a pool table. A dozen young men held down his arms and legs, positioning him so his head jutted out past the table's edge. Kiryu brought out a steel pipe nearly a meter long. It was caked liberally with dried blood. "Guillotine! Guillotine! 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 Guillotine!" The men of Kiryu's faction pumped their fists into the air, chanting madly. Kiryu licked his lips as if drunk off of their cheers. Glancing to one side, Achi saw Minorukawa speaking emphatically to Susumu. It looked like the reporter was trying to talk some sense into the SOS leader. Man, today is my lucky day. I get to take the head of SOS's original head. Achi twisted his neck to peer up at him. Man, what point is there in taking my head right now? Oh, my, you don't get it, do you? See, if I send you to the hospital, everyone in Shibuya is gonna know my name. And once I've got that big-ass sign over my head, I'll be able to unite this town under my banner in one fell swoop. Kiryu's eyes were crazed and bloodshot. Then that's all the more reason for you to do as I'm asking. If you want to unite Shibuya, you have to protect it first. But if you think you need to take my head to do that, then go right ahead. Even if these guys were all like Kiryu, if this many of them actually showed up at the scramble, they'd be able to do far more than Achi could hope to by himself. The ultimate goal was to capture Alphard. Achi didn't care how they made that happen. He was just sorry he wouldn't get to see it through. He protected Tomei to the very end. Okay then, Kiryu brayed. The gloves are coming off! Go on and do it. Achi balked at the last second. No, wait, hold on. We gotta do A, it feels like. Go on. Do it. Achi braced himself. Just make sure you keep your promise. Kiryu raised the steel pipe high above his head, and then before he brought it down, he flicked the tip of his tongue from his mouth like a snake. You dumbass, I didn't promise you nothing! Achi strained in sudden panic, but his limbs were pinned down too forcefully for him to have any hope of avoiding what was to come. But the steel pipe never struck home. Just when it was about to smash into Achi's head, Susumu grabbed hold of it. The hell are you doing? Enough of this crap, Kiryu. Susumu yanked the pipe from Kiryu's grasp and tossed it onto the floor. Kiryu stood frozen in surprise. A vein pulsed angrily in his forehead. You guys too, Susumu added, glaring at the others. Let him go! The toughs holding Achi down cautiously took their hands away. Kiryu let out a red-faced cry of rage. But we got unfinished business! Ignoring him, Susumu helped Achi slide off the table. Every man gets to make one request in his life that cannot be denied. Do you remember saying that? The words stirred up some bitter memories within Achi. Yeah, I remember. But you didn't grant me my request. No, I guess not. That's why I'm gonna heed yours. No questions asked. Susumu held out his right hand. Susumu? You are? It'll make me the better man. Finally. Achi reached out and clasped Susumu's hand in his. Yeah, Achi said, letting his relief show on his face. You're quite the guy. Susumu cracked a tiny grin. It was the sort of smile Achi had seen all the time back when he'd run with SOS. Suddenly, Susumu staggered and dropped to the floor, falling too fast even to cry out. Kiryu would snatch the steel pipe back up from the floor, striking Susumu from behind once his back was turned. To hell with this! He howled like a madman. SOS doesn't belong to you guys! Not anymore! I won't allow it! Achi didn't flinch. SOS doesn't belong to anyone, he said. It's not mine, it's not Susumu's, and it isn't yours. We're just a bunch of friends hanging out and having a good time. That's the only reason we get together. Nothing more, nothing less. He turned and looked slowly around the room. Hey, you guys! Do you all get together because someone told you to assemble? Do you get together to follow someone's orders? No, you don't! Of course you don't! The bar fell silent. Achi could see the young men who surrounded him exchanging glances. They could tell that his words rang true. Kiryu saw it too, and it only made him more and more agitated. Shut up! Enough with the warm fuzzies! Abruptly, he charged forward, giving the steel pipe a mighty swing. Achi managed to dodge the attack by a mere hair. If it had connected, the blow might well have knocked his head clean off. He quickly backed away. What's the matter? Kiryu taunted. How come all you do is run? The pipe crashed down on the bar top. Bottles of beer and liquor smashed and scattered. Come on, what's the matter, Achi? Kiryu slammed his weapon into the pool table, sending balls scattering across the floor. Some of them collided with Susumu. Ugh. Susumu let out a faint groan. Smirking at the sound, Kiryu stalked toward him. Speaking of unfinished business! With a gleaming grin, Kiryu took aim at Susumu's head, lifting the pipe up high. Stop! Before he could think better of it, Achi was rushing for his fallen friend. You dumbass! Without missing a beat, Kiryu shifted his weight and swung the steel pipe at Achi's temple. Achi responded with a fast, high kick with his right leg. The steel pipe connected hard with his shin, but it was Kiryu who went reeling off balance. Yeah! Achi pivoted and put all his might into a straight right into Kiryu's jaw. The blow struck home. Kiryu's head snapped back and he crumpled to the floor. There was a momentary hush of indrawn breath. Then the bar erupted in a wild clamor that practically shook the whole building. All eyes were fixed on Achi, marveling at what they had just seen go down. Sounds like folks were hoping for a little more of a fight. Mean Clean just took out the trash, that's right. Susumu got to his feet, his left hand clutching his right shoulder. You all right? Achi asked. Mostly. Guess my shoulder took the brunt of the blow. The gang members from Kiryu's faction rushed to their unconscious leader's side. Achi shot them a steely glare, and they gathered up Kiryu and dragged him out of the bar. I didn't go too far here, did I? Achi asked Susumu. Is this gonna cause trouble for you? No. I figured Kiryu would pull something like this eventually. Just a question of when. Right. I'm sure he's gonna gather up his own bunch after this. We'll probably wind up butting heads again. Susumu didn't sound especially eager for that fight, but he didn't sound especially afraid of it either. Achi was still worried about a few things, but his friend had clearly grown as a leader. Anyway, back to that story about you needing some manpower. Will the guys here be enough? There were around 30 gang members still in the bar. Achi looked each of them in the eye in turn. Some he knew from back in the day, while others were fresh faces. I was born and raised in this town. I'm fond of the friends I've met here, and this has always been a great place to have a good time. And today, right here in this town, I met someone who's very special to me, and I know this doesn't involve the rest of you, but I'm willing to protect her. Achi knew he wasn't doing a great job of getting to the point, but the members of SOS listened quietly. And so, it's like, he felt like a grade schooler who didn't know the answer to a difficult question. He fussed with his hair and frowned sheepishly. Okay, so I'm not sure how to really put this, but Shibuya is a special town to me because of getting to meet people like that. And maybe... No, I mean, it's like that for you guys too? Don't you love Shibuya? So help me help this town. He bowed low and deep. I want to protect this girl who means so much to me, and the city that means so much to me as well. I know my answer. Susumu clapped a hand on Achi's shoulder. Listen up, everyone! SOS's original founder is back in action! He needs our help, and I, for one, am ready to follow him into battle! What do you say? Susumu's people let out a hearty cheer. When Achi marched back into his home, followed by 30 members of his old gang, Hitomi and Kano were obviously overjoyed to see him. Their happiness raised his own spirits unexpectedly high. He felt a palpable sense of accomplishment. All right, detective, Achi shouted. Let's do this. His resounding cry echoed throughout the workroom, and the gang set out for the scramble. What's the matter? Hitomi asked Achi as they made their way through the busy streets. What's the matter with what? You look pretty pale. She peered good and hard into his face. Do I now? Are you tired or something? I mean, you've been kind of going all out all day long after all. That's nothing. Achi kept his voice nice and bright. I'm just a little hungry is all. So don't worry about me, or Alphard either, okay? I swear I'll keep you safe, Hitomi. Alright. Hitomi gave a tiny nod. Just leave it to me. Alphard's got nothing on this guy. He thumped his chest in a display of bravado, but he could feel the sweat beading on his brow. When they reached the scramble, Hachi took his place at the location specified by the battle plan Kano had drawn up. Hitomi was only a few meters away. Whatever happened, he was in a good position to shield her from harm. There were 3 minutes left until the appointed rendezvous. Hachi wondered what sort of person was going to show up. Still, he knew he couldn't scan the crowd too much. He needed to act as naturally as possible, so Alphard wouldn't be suspicious. He risked a glance over at Hitomi. Maybe now wasn't the time for admiring, but he couldn't help but think how cute she looked. In some ways, seeing her there felt similar to where he'd seen her that morning, in the very same spot. The difference was that this time it wasn't just Hitomi's good looks that made him find her so attractive. They might have only spent a few hours together, but in that time he'd learned a lot about her as a person. He knew what was important to her, what her worries were, her wants and desires. And also, he'd learned what a kind-hearted person she was. Hachi recalled what had happened back in the workroom. Even though her own life had been in danger all day, Hitomi had shed tears for his father and his sister. She really understood people's grief and suffering. What do I do if I can't protect someone as good as her? Hachi muttered under his breath, clutching his right leg. His shin was throbbing wickedly where the pipe had smashed against it. He'd been okay walking so far, but any intense fighting in the leg might just give out. But he couldn't let himself worry about that now. If it came down to it, he'd be a human shield to protect Hitomi if he had to. Hachi looked at his watch. Only 1 minute to go before 7 p.m. He glanced again at Hitomi and saw her eyes widen with surprise. Quickly, he followed her gaze across the plaza. He spotted a tall, white man approaching. Keep out! Okay. Well, we can jump to Kano. So, let's do just a tad bit more. There is a lot still to go through, let me tell you. But, yeah, we'll go to Kano. Alright, Magnus home. Kano, here we go. But we can't wait any longer. Kano's face began to tremble. You told me, I'll be alright, I'm just a little nervous, that's all. She had a right to be nervous. Alphard was after the antiviral that she had in her bloodstream. Once he had it, Hitomi would become a liability that he'd want to dispose of. And right now, the only person who could keep her safe was Kano. He clenched his jaw tight and tried to look confident. Please, just try to relax. I'll protect you with my life if I have to. Protecting Hitomi is my job. Hachi, you're back! I said I'd see you through to the very end, didn't I? Yeah, you did. Hitomi gazed back at Hachi with grateful reassurance. Ahem. Kano cleared his throat softly, but Hachi and Hitomi continued to stare earnestly at one another. Eventually, the tough-looking young man standing behind Hachi spoke up. I've got 30. Will that be enough? Yeah, Kano nodded. That'll be fine. More importantly, have you heard what we're doing yet? Catch the bad guy, keep Shibuya safe. Same old thing we always do. The guy flashed a grin. You got it, Kano said. We'll be counting on you then. With 30-odd people at their disposal, they'd be able to encircle the meeting area, no problem. The preparations were all set. It was time to confront Alphard at last. All right, Detective, Hachi shouted. Let's do this! Kano gave a firm nod. Nine minutes later, 6:59 p.m., Kano and the others were in position around the scramble. Each subtle tick of the second hand was like a sharp prod to Kano's nerves. His whole body was stiff with tension. They could not let themselves fail. There was too much at stake. Here, now, hundreds of thousands of lives were on the line. It's Ayakamiki again! With Shibuya on lockdown, the area around the scramble had been seized by panic, and there had been multiple traffic collisions. The sidewalks were crowded with scared people, overturned cars and abandoned motorcycles clogged the streets. Amidst the chaos, emergency vehicles sped by at furious speeds, but the fire and emergency personnel and even the police were short-handed, and the whole of Shibuya had begun to look like a war zone. The main roads had been blocked to normal traffic, and trains weren't stopping at the stations. In effect, the city was in a state of complete shutdown. Kano glanced again at his wristwatch. 6:59 p.m. and 10 seconds. 11 seconds. 12 seconds. 13 seconds. 14 seconds. He scarcely remembered to breathe. Hitomi stood in front of the statue of Hachiko. She wasn't carrying an attaché case this time. But the moment was otherwise a strange mirror of the stakeout at 10 o'clock that morning. Video! She looked terrified. Kano couldn't blame her. The criminals weren't after some case full of money this time. This time they were out for blood. Her blood. Kano did a slow scan of the area. Achi was standing not too far away. His companions were strewn about here and there, carrying on as normal. Here in Shibuya, those guys fit right in with the crowd, and they had the area around Hitomi completely surrounded. Yet again, Kano looked at his watch. 6:59 p.m., 35 seconds, 36 seconds, 37 seconds, 38 seconds, 39 seconds. He forced himself to take several deep breaths. He focused on the sound of his own heartbeat and exhaled until all the breath was expelled from his lungs. And then it all started. Kano's cell phone rang. I've got him. It was Daisuke, the organ trafficker who devised the kidnapping. It's him. Where is he? Kano asked. Is he close by? I've got him on camera now. He's on the other side of the intersection. Kano looked out across the scramble. There were so many people that it was hard to tell who or what was or wasn't suspicious. Can you describe him for me? The tall foreign guy. The one wearing glasses. A tall foreigner? Kano's eyes drifted over the crowd. Oh! Aha. There he was. And as he got closer, Kano's eyes went wide. This man was someone he'd met before. Leland Palmer, the lecturer from the English department at Hitomi and Maria's school. Is he Alphard? Palmer was walking right toward Hitomi. Hitomi didn't seem to have noticed him yet. When Kano glanced back at his wristwatch, it was 7 p.m. on the dot. When Hitomi realized Palmer was approaching her, she was too stunned to react. He walked directly up to her, the corners of his mouth curling up into a smile. Hello, Hitomi, he said in English. How are you doing? Professor Palmer? What are you doing here? Hitomi's voice came out in an anxious squeak. Why, I'm here to take your blood, of course. This time he spoke Japanese with an easy fluency totally different from his usual manner of speech. I'm the one who injected you with the Ua virus. I'd been waiting so long for the opportunity to arise. It's been quite agonizing, you know. spending 6 months and more pretending to be a mild-mannered English lecturer. Professor, you're Alphard, aren't you? Let's get down to business, shall we? Neither of us has much time. Hitomi stiffened. Please, tell me the laboratory password after I have your blood. This will only take a few seconds. I've got a device here that will make the extraction quite simple. No way. The password first. That would violate the terms we already had negotiated. Hitomi and Palmer glared at one another. All right, Hitomi said at last. Why don't you negotiate with Kanan instead? Kanan? Hitomi took her cell phone out and dialed. But the phone rang repeatedly and Kanan did not pick up. What's going on? Hitomi's face went pale. Come on, Kanan. Kano, standing near enough to overhear their conversation, grew increasingly anxious as he watched the pair stare at the phone. What was the right move here? Should he keep waiting? Let's see. He had hoped talking to Kanan would work out. He waited. At this point, they couldn't count on Kanan. Let's wait. He had hoped talking to Kanan would work out. Kano waited for the call to go through. But Kanan never answered. Had something happened to her and Totno? Kano felt his heart pounding. Now then, shall I take what I came here for? Palmer took a step closer to Hitomi. Kano reacted instinctively. Freeze! He drew his gun and trained it on the criminal. Nearby pedestrians scattered in fear. Seizing the moment, Achi darted in to protect Hitomi. Palmer let out a tiny sigh. So you're breaking the terms we agreed upon then? I don't negotiate with terrorists. Kano inched his way closer, his point of aim never wavering. Hitomi, he shouted. Call Kanan again. Again, Hitomi dialed her cell phone. Palmer opened the attaché case he was carrying. One more move and I shoot! Kano shouted. But the terrorist ignored the warning, producing a set of glass vials from within the case. If you want to shoot me, then shoot me, he said, assuming you don't mind this getting scattered about. Is that... Surely you don't need me to explain. Stanley was right. Alphard had weaponized the virus. Doing his best to conceal his horror, Kano tried to sound defiant. How can I even know that's real? You can't let that loose here. Let's ask. How could I even know that's real? It was entirely possible this was all a bluff. Indeed, these could all be a fake. Would you care to test that theory? Palmer flashed a coy smile, holding out his fistful of vials. He began to tilt them slowly back and forth, letting them clink against each other. They were fake. No, maybe they were real. Kano couldn't quite decide, and he couldn't take any rash action if there was even the possibility these were the real thing. Did you come here to carry out a suicide attack, Mr. Alphard? Hardly. I have no desire to die here. All I want is to get a little of this girl's blood and then go quietly on my way, but that all depends on you, doesn't it? His face was overflowing with confidence. Kano couldn't shake the feeling that something was off here. Something about this man's demeanor hinted at something. Well then, what will it be? Palmer continued. Will you condemn the people of Shibuya to death? Cursing inwardly, Kano lowered his gun. Palmer flashed a triumphant grin, then resumed his stroll toward Hitomi. She stood, frozen on the spot. Susumu! The shout had come from Achi. In an instant, a dozen members of SOS headed toward Palmer from all sides. Tough luck, pal, Susumu said. Turns out we're not actually innocent bystanders. Now it was his turn to grin. You're completely surrounded. Give up and tell us the password now. And just for the record, we ain't scared of no virus. The tough-looking young men radiated bravado. Without hesitation, they closed in around the kidnapper. Surrounded. You certainly don't look like police. Palmer cast a bemused glance around himself. You're right about that, Hachi said. I mean, just take a look. I gathered up a bunch of people who love Shibuya more than their own lives in order to take your ass down. He kept Hitomi shielded behind him while he spoke. There's no escape, he declared. You lost. Lost? Me? Well, it sure doesn't look like you're gonna get away. Palmer grimaced at Achi's words. I see. Then it appears our negotiations are at a close. Enough of the high and mighty act. Susumu stomped aggressively toward Palmer. Hey! Kono snapped. Easy now! They couldn't risk a scuffle, sending the virus crashing to the ground. What a shame. Palmer swung his right arm up high. Oh boy. Oh boy. Everyone watched in dismay as his hand shot up. The vials he'd been holding sailed upward against the backdrop of the evening sky. Look out! Achi shouted. Catch him! Catch him! What? A tremendous blast blew Kano off of his feet. As he crashed to the pavement, searing pain shot through his entire body. He knew at once that a bomb had gone off. But why? It didn't make any sense. Alphard had no intention of carrying out a suicidal terror attack. Kano was certain of that. If that had been his intent, he could have just done so at any time, without going through the trouble of putting on this whole charade. Was there some reason that this guy would blow himself up under these circumstances, at this specific moment? As he lay dying, Kano had a thought. Could it be? Had Stanley not come to the scramble because he knew this was going to happen? No. Looks like Stanley needs to prevent something from happening. But, I think we're gonna call it there for tonight. And we're gonna get back in it with Stanley next time. So, we're gonna close for there for now, but yeah, that's right. Jack Stanley is a saint. In this house, Jack Stanley is a hero. Okay, it's a hero, is what he is. So, all right, next time we're gonna Stanley Max, and I think going to finish the game next time. Okay, we're gonna try our best to finish the game. So, all right. We will see you then for more Shibuya Scramble. All right. See you later.